let's get into this one. We're doing things a little bit differently. I gotta walk over here and get around boxes. Kriega Bundle. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and welcome to the library. I'm Tennessee Fats, and I'm coming to you from the desk today. I've turned things around because today we're talking about something that's not our normal content. Normally we come here and we talk about a lot of Robert E. Howard stuff. Lately we've been covering a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff and stuff related to the Burroughs universe. Today, though, we need to talk about a particular image that I posted on the 20th, which was about a week and a bit ago, where I said I found something that blew my mind. And here's the image of what it is that we posted on the YouTube posts section. Anything you want to know, well, we do post there frequently, and you can feel free to comment, and I don't think I've done any polls there yet. Maybe we'll do that later. Bottom line is, I found something. It made my brain go... So what I'm going to do here is, just to get this whole spoiler thing out of the way, I'm going to put the image of the book up over here. And I'm going to hold it there for a second. Now you're going to say, Tennessee Fats, why did you hold it there for a second? I'll tell you why. The reason why is because this is a Warlord book. In fact, this is Warlord number 48. Here's the deal. Most people, when I say Warlord, their eyes just glaze over, they roll, and they just don't want to talk about it anymore. In fact, most people I know, when they saw that image and that are on this channel watching this video, have said, Tennessee Fats, you're out of your mind. They've clicked away and they're gone. So now that we've got the people who are interested, are not interested out, let's talk to you guys who are left over. This book made my brain go, and it did this for a variety of reasons, and I want to share with you what those are, because this might be something, as a Robert E. Howard fan, you might want to pick up, and we'll walk our way through that slowly. First, I want to walk through how I sort of fell ass backwards into buying this book in the first place, because honestly, I had no intention of how I got here. It's one of those things where it's like, you can't get there from here, but I somehow did. Let's talk about that first. Okay, so here's the deal. As of the recording of this video, right now, today, is actually Free Comic Book Day 2025. So that has just automatically timestamped this video. Happy Free Comic Day, everybody, for those of you who are out there and actually made off like bandits. I'll tell you, you can't see the surface of the Tennessee Fats desk right now, but it is an absolute poop show. I was actually in the process of writing out notes for the next Battle Royale, so I already had that stuff all over my desk. Then I went to Free Comic Book Day today, and I came home with some stuff, and now that stuff is everywhere. And then I had to get out this stuff for this. It's just not looking good right now, but we'll get it cleaned and organized shortly. It's just one of those things that will trigger my OCD. Here's the deal. I found my way to this in a really stupid manner, and I want to walk through why I found my way here, because this might trigger some of you to think, hey, maybe I should. Okay, here's the story, okay? I was at a con. It was actually a toy con. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I was actually at a toy con. When was that? About a month ago? About a month ago, I'm thinking now. And I was at that, and they didn't have very many comics there, but they did have some. And in fact, the majority of the comics were in dollar bins. Now, I very rarely ever see dollar bins ever in Canada. Like, they just don't exist anymore, at least in the GTA, which is very frustrating, because everything automatically is a $2 book, and that it gets in my craw. Let's just leave it that way. So I was there, and so I'd already spent money to get into the place. Beautiful wife said to me, well, maybe you should just go and dig through those. Like, I got time, we got time. Let's just see if you find something. And I made out with this. Now you're going to say, Tennessee Fats, what is that? Well, this is the entire first 11 issues of Arion, the Lord of Atlantis, that I got for $1 a book. Now you'd say, Tennessee Fats, why? Well, I'll tell you why. I'm reading this series right now. That's the All-In Aquaman series. Is it called All-In, or is it just called Aquaman? I don't know. It's Aquaman taken in a whole new way. I don't know how many new ways you could do Aquaman in, but apparently they are. And it is rather interesting, and it's a good story. And in this, Lord Arion of Atlantis made his reappearance. Let's call it that. And I was reading that story, and I thought to myself, that Arion guy was the poop back in the day. Not that he sold really well as far as, a title goes, but he actually was fairly big in the DC universe. Why do I not own any of that? And I sort of just parked that in the back of the old Tennessee Fats noggin. That's why when I saw these, when I was digging through a dollar bin, I was like, wait a minute. I specifically thought about this the other day, so I bought them. And I'm looking forward to reading these. I haven't actually read these yet. You can tell I haven't read them because they're in the original floppy bags and boards, which is never how I would keep comics. I keep comics like this. Anyways, again, my OCD brain speaking. Before I read these, though, I says to myself, you should probably start this at the beginning. If you're going to start reading Arion of Atlantis, you should probably start at his first appearance and go forward. So I did some Googling. That's what that ticky noise, by the way, is me typing. I actually do type. I don't type that fast. And I found out the first appearance of Arion, the Lord of Atlantis, was in Warlord. So, somewhat begrudgingly, because I'm already into this at $1 a book, I says to myself, head on into the shop, the local comic shop, see if you can find it, and start from there. Well, when I went in, I was completely floored to find that all of the books I were looking for, were looking for, were at $2 a book. They were in their bargain bins. See that $2 book number coming back? It just constantly resurges. Anyways, they were there in the chibi bins. I'm like, what? So I picked them up. I picked up that, and I actually said, well, since I'm going to be reading Warlord Comics, why don't I pick a cover that looks like it's a natural jump-off point and start going forward from there? So I went back. So the first appearance of Arion, the Lord of Atlantis, was in Warlord number 54. I went back to number 48 because that's the cover that really jumped out at me. And there's the cover again for those of you who are interested. I'll just leave that up there for a second. The reason why this jumped at me is because it said, hey, it's the return of Claw up at the top. It referenced Arak, Son of Thunder. That's A-R-A-K. And of course, you have a Mike Grell Warlord cover on this. It's a classic image. And I thought, okay, well, this will be my good jumping off point. And that's what led to me getting here. Well, then I started to read the darn thing. That's when I found out all sorts of amazingness. And let's talk about that part now. Okay, so what was it particularly that floored me about this book? And I know that's a question that I've been asked already via direct messages, but I wanted to do this in the video to really hammer this home, because I think more people should actually be going out and buying this very book. And it's a couple things. I'm not going to spoil all these for you here, but I will say this. This story is broken up, or this issue is broken up into 3 components. And it really makes this book more of a serial book. And what's interesting in reading about a dozen of these now is I'm finding the serial format seems to be a standard thing they were doing with Warlord, which I'm not going to argue with. I think it works really well. So the first story is a Warlord story. Now, I've never really had a lot of exposure to Mike Grell work other than the Green Lantern, Green Arrow stuff that I've seen. And that was just visually mind-blowing as you were reading it back in the day. It was nice to see here that Mike has once again done the work. And he's put in the actual Warlord story at the front of this. Not every single Warlord story was done by Mike Grell, and I'll add an Easter egg to the end of this video where I'll talk more about the Warlord series overall and some of my observations of it. And for you guys who want to stick around and check that out, feel free. But really what we're talking about is this particular book in this segment. Now what's interesting is Mike did do this, and the story is one that's somewhat tropish. I get it. Nice little twist to it. There's a nice piece of history hidden within it as well. And what you really enjoy about that is really just a regular Savage Sword-esque sword and sorcery type story. You've got a warlord, he's living in a barbaric sort of world, he's dealing with all sorts of different cultures, he has to deal with them, but what's nice about this is you have a modern mind sitting in this barbaric world that you can relate to. And I've never really read a Warlord book before, so for me it was interesting seeing that twist on what would just be a regular barbarian story. So that was kind of cool. The Mike Grell art really was, I'm just going to say superb, and I'm just going to set that aside. The last piece in this, and you saw it when you saw the image, I'll put the image of the cover up over here again, is the return and more information about Claw the Unconquered. Now, for me, Claw the Unconquered is a very interesting character because I've already done a fair number of reviews on this where I've read into the material. One of the videos I think I'll put up over here for you guys, where I said, well, what is this guy? Is he a cheap knockoff? Like what? And the fact that this Claw the Unconquered character is so similar to, what's his name, Fafnir? The one-handed guy that's got that barbarian arm. That's Conan's friend. I can't even remember. But the similarities there is quite unique. But what I like about Claw is the fact that he's a totally different character in a different universe. It was dealing with an entirely different pantheon of noise. This story that's within here gives us more background about, well, who is Claw? What are these 7 Earths that he lives on? And why is he in the middle one? And what's the origin of that claw hand? And the art, as much as I was surprised by it, is really fantastic. Here, I'll put up some images over here as we're talking about this one. Because you see a lot of really stunning imagery coming through this, where they're building up this world of Claw, the Unconquered. And what you saw at the end of the story, even though it trailed on into the next couple issues, was it gave you a nice piece of finality that goes with that Claw story there. It actually had a beginning, middle, and end, which was a lot of fun. And each segment was long enough that you actually got a small arc within them. Really a cool piece there, and the art was quite impressive. The last piece in here, which was the throw-in, which sort of floored me, and you'll see the, again, cover right there. If you look down at the side, you see special 16-page insert, intro of Arak, Son of Thunder. Now it's A-R-A-K. Wow! Okay, hold on. We need to stop for a second just to talk about that. That, in and of itself, makes this entire book worth buying, and not just buying once, buy multiple copies. Here's the reason why. Some people might not know this. The Arak character? Here, I'll put up the splash page over here. Look at the created by and written by, and look at the art by. I'm not going to say anything more on the art by. I think it's stunning enough as it is. Roy Thomas. This is a Roy Thomas character. This is a guy who knows Conan, knows the Hyborian world, knows how to write sword and sorcery, knows how to write adventure stories. He wrote this. He created this. It's sitting here. I had no idea this even existed as a Roy Thomas thing. And I can tell you, after reading this, if you're a Conan fan, you're going to like this. The story in and of itself was fairly short, but it's enough to draw you in to say, okay, I am now interested enough in this Arak character that I will now go on and buy subsequent issues of that particular series to find out more about that. It's really interesting. So for a single book, I'll put the image up over there again so you guys get a clear image. This was really a stunning find. It completely surprised me as a DC book that it floored me at a level of sword and sorcery that I wasn't expecting. The additional content that we threw in a Roy Thomas piece that was within this. The fact that I found this just because I was trying to find my way backwards a couple issues before the Arion of Atlantis story even started. Mind blown. I would strongly encourage any of you, if you're thinking about going out and buying a Warlord and you just want to say, okay, well, what's a typical piece? Well, I've read about a dozen of these now. This was the first one I read. It still remains the one that jumps out at me as the most as saying, okay, this is the stunning intro piece that most people should be reading. I would encourage you to go pick this particular one up. Okay, so if you stuck around to this point, effectively I am assuming, and of course I could be assuming incorrectly, because of course you should never make assumptions in life, but I'm assuming that you actually want to hear what I think and some of my observations of the Warlord series overall. That particular issue was a mind-blowing one. And again, I would encourage anybody, if they're saying, hey, I'm only going to buy one, of the ones I've read so far, that's the... And honestly, as a Conan fan, Roy Thomas fan, Claw the Uncut, all of it. It's like the perfect storm of, hey, Tennessee Fats, this book was written just for you. It's like, wow. So much fun. Here's what I've observed in Warlord overall, though. It's really a lot of fun. I as a sword and sorcery guy that's been out buying comics since, well, I don't want to say when. It's a long time, okay? Every time I see a Warlord book, I have always said, really? Warlord? Really? Kind of over the... What is it, a Warlord of Mars? Sort of, do I really want it? And I never have. I've always avoided it like the plague, because I've always said, it's a rabbit hole I'm just not going down. I'm just not interested enough to do it. I was so wrong. We talked about one story in one book here today, but overall in the series, what you actually see here are some phenomenal tales. The stories that they write about Warlord, granted, they can be very tropish. In fact, one of the largest arcs that's in here seems to be just a complete take on The Man in the Iron Mask, which, listen, you can't rewrite everything, but it was really tastefully done, and I enjoyed the way they put this in here. There are other themes in here that keep coming up, like the loss of a son that wasn't actually lost, who's going to make a return. There is all sorts of espionage and intrigue in the court system because, you know, Warlord's this modern guy that's stuck in this barbaric world and he has all these sort of modern ideas. Well, the feudal system that he's wandered into doesn't exactly agree with that. There's a lot of fun where they throw in the smiley face and they're doing sort of a Trojan horse sort of spoof on it, and very funny twist at the end. But in addition to that, you have this very tongue-in-cheek sort of fun made of Marvel and the typical barbarian stories at the same time. I'll throw up an image over here. This came up in a later story, and these are two assassins that are sent out to basically take out a guy and a group of criminals. If you look at them, the one clearly is Conan, clearly. But the other one sort of takes on some of the things that you would see in the Grey Mouser. And you're like, okay, I get the big one isn't okay, but... And you're looking at him, and it's funny because when the Conan-esque character speaks, he's a complete buffoon. He's a complete moron. And obviously it's been done in such a way, they're obviously just poking fun over at the Marvel team and over at Conan. And as a Conan fan, listen, I love Conan, but it's always fun to have some sort of fun within it as well. So that was kind of well done. And if you can take the tropes that they've put in here and take them in the tongue-in-cheek way that they're intended, at least how I believe they're intended, you really will have a lot of fun with the series. The other aspect that comes up within the series that really surprised me is the raw talent that's gone through this book. Mike Grell in and of himself is mind-blowing. The art that he does is incredible. But within this, you also see, for example, I referenced the Iraq Son of Thunder thing that had Roy Thomas work in it. And again, look at the artist. It's stunning. Just go look it up yourself. I'm just stopping there. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. But in addition to this, I was very intrigued to find Mark Teixeira, who later went on to do so much with Marvel and with Image, had very early work in this series. And the only reason I discovered is because I saw this splash page. And if you look right down the corner there's a splash page on page 2 and 3 of every comic, because I guess Mike really wanted to jump at you when you looked at that. The art just sort of went, what's going on here? Because it caught my eye. And I said, well, who did this? And I was like, Mark Teixeira did this? I was like, are you kidding? And it's not just this one. He did a bunch of them, and I'll keep them rolling over here. He was doing work early in this series. And you can see the early work that he did right there on the page. It's right in front of you. Not only that, but as a Superman fan, if you are a Superman fan, Dan Jurgens apparently did his first interior professional art in this series. And it actually is in this stack here of books. There's a couple I haven't read at the bottom there. But this is in here. All of these artists have come through here, either as writers or as artists that really add a phenomenal amount to the story. And the stories themselves are just fun sword and sorcery tales. It's also a launching point where you're throwing in other characters as well that are also being developed. For example, the Arion of Atlantis is thrown in the back as a serial that continues. The Dragon's Sword is a 4-part series, which is actually very funny. I actually enjoyed reading that. That was in the back of a couple of these. And of course, it starts off with Claw the Unconquered. I believe this whole series, serial mode must be something they're going for on a continued basis, because it really does add something to the series. So I have a dozen of these now. Am I going to continue buying these? If I find them for the cheap, absolutely. They are a great piece of sword and sorcery fun. And I would encourage any of you, if not just this one issue, if you read it and you enjoy it as much as I do, maybe you want to go buy these ones as well. Because honestly, as a sword and sorcery fan, you can't just limit yourself to one thing. You got to broaden the horizons a little bit. Just broaden. Just saying. Not saying just, go everywhere. Don't go crazy. But maybe just open the doors a little bit. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up here. I'll tell you, this was an interesting one for me. Wow, one on the chair. Fun one because I was covering something that wasn't Marvel. I wasn't talking about anything that's new or Titan related. It wasn't a Conan thing. At the same time, I just wanted to tell you about one particular book. But then I went down a rabbit hole because I found out all sorts of stuff about this particular title. I enjoy Warlord, and I enjoy this sort of sword and sorcery take or twist that's within DC. I enjoyed the Stalker one. I enjoyed Claw. And this is just proving more to the point of, I probably should not have been ignoring DC Sword and Sorcery this entire time. That was obviously a bad on my part. I hope I have given you guys enough information here that some of you younger collectors might say to yourselves, maybe I should give this the time of day if you're into Sword and Sorcery. Don't make the mistake I did where I waited literally until I'm 50 to figure out, I should probably read these. No, do it earlier on. They are a lot of fun, and honestly, you will enjoy it. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you in the next one.